You know, it is just such a crazy time in real estate. I do want to talk a little bit about what we have at hand with the NAR settlement and how the industry might be changing. So I'm just curious. I would love to hear from you. Where are you listening in from today? And what do you think about the NAR settlement? What do you think about the changes that are potentially, and I say potentially because this settlement has to be approved by the court. We could also see some interference potentially from the Department of Justice, maybe the FTC. We don't really know yet. So it's a potential settlement, potentially putting these commission lawsuits to bed. And just curious what you think about them. So Elon, hi, how are you? I'm going to go ahead and bring you on. So hi, Elon. Good morning.
Well, good morning, Kayla.
Good morning. So what do you think about everything that's going on, Elon?
Well, I think in some ways it's good. I think one of the things that if the judge accepts the settlement, it'll pretty much put pretty much everything to bed right now. We don't have to worry about being sued by the sellers. So it gets rid of that uncertainty. It's like a big cloud that's over me currently because you don't know what's going to happen. So I'm hoping that the judge accepts the settlement. That's what I'm hoping.
I feel you on that. I absolutely have that same sense of kind of relief. It seemed like every week there was a new class action lawsuit being filed in one state or another, and it was starting to feel extremely overwhelming. And so, yeah, I agree. Putting it to bed, I think, will be a positive thing for the industry. Derek, let's go ahead and bring you on. Would love to hear your thoughts and kind of what's going on in your world.
So here's my perspective. I'm still a new agent. I only been in the business 5 years, and no, I don't do 10 deals a month. And my thing is this whole settlement. Who does it hurt? It hurts the buyer. Bottom line, that's the foundation. To me, that's the foundation of real estate. Somebody got to buy something, and if you're making it harder for them to buy, these houses are going to just sit on the market, especially when it pertains to FHA buyers, VA buyers that can barely come up with the money for the down payment and closing costs. Now, and that was pretty much about 7%. If you're an FHA buyer, 3.5% for your down payment, 3.5% for closing costs. You can have a seller pay for that. Now you're talking another 2-3% on top of that, where a $300,000 house, you're coming up with what, 10% of that, $30,000 potentially? And what about VA buyers, where in their contract, in VA guidelines, buyers cannot pay a buyer's agency commission? And you come across a listing that has no commission offered, because now you're calling every listing agent, hey, you're offering commission? No, seller not offering commission. So that leaves a whole group of VA buyers out, leaves out FHA buyers. If you're a buyer agent and you know going in that your buyer cannot afford to pay your fee. And then loan officers, they're not empathetic on buying agents. They be like, right now, the ones I talk to, it's pretty much up to be you. Because when that altar come in and that buyer is short, they got their down payment, they got the closing costs covered by the seller, they don't have that buyer's agency fee that's agreed upon. The loan officer is not honoring that. So it can be some buyers, buy agent and say, hey, we probably got like $400 left over in seller credit. You can have that. And where they probably be getting $5,000. So it's just, I can rant on it but forever. And of course, the failure rate as a real estate agent is 80% within the first 2 years, over 90% within the first 5 years. Everyone knows that. So with all this bad publicity, where's the flux of new agents that's going to come in to replace? Because nobody's trying to sign up to be a real estate agent now after all of this comes out in fruition. So yeah, it's just, they got to do something, that's for sure. Or we all going to be travel agents.
Oh dear. No, we will not, Derek. Hey, thanks for your thoughts. I think that what I hear, and we share the same sentiment. So after the lawsuit broke, many of our Zoodealio, investors, buyer network, they were reaching out to us, getting our take on, what this is going to mean for the industry. And from my perspective, one of the things that I shared is it definitely hurts the first-time home buyer. It hurts the FHA buyer. It hurts the VA buyers currently can't even pay for that fee. And so we know that there's still some work to be done. And my hope is that NAR is currently talking to the regulators, looking to get some rule change in the lending world as well. well. And I don't believe we're going to see a complete eradication of seller paid buyer broker commissions immediately. I do think that maybe over time there will be some downward pressure on that. But I think that initially what we all know is that if we want to have the most amount of buyers come see our listings, that it's a good thing to offer that buyer broker compensation. And so I think that we just definitely need to double down on our value proposition. And one of the things I'm going to talk about today, so I'm kind of glad you teed it up, is a way where we can tie in our buyer services with our listing services. So Evie, she said, I think we as listing agents have to inform our sellers that when we receive an offer, it is most likely that there will be a subject to the seller paying the buyer's agent commission. Absolutely, absolutely. And, I think that Derek mentioned this. We're going to have to go communicate one off to each listing agent and kind of figure out, is your seller offering compensation? Are they not? And 100% going to change the fluidity in which we show houses. I know that it's going to definitely put a wrench in how we currently do that. And so it's going to be really interesting. But one thing I know about us realtors is we are resourceful. And we will figure it out. I know it. And yes, it could cause our realtor count to shrink, but I bet you can think of a realtor or two, or maybe 3 or 5, that you wouldn't mind not being in the business. And I bet you can think of a transaction or two where the realtor on the other side, you had a thought like, wow, that realtor really shouldn't be doing what they're doing. They're really not serving their client's best interests. Maybe they're going to you for advice on how to represent their client. So we see a lot. And unfortunately, what I think happened is I think that it was an attack on the industry. And I think that what they should have attacked was the low barrier of entry in order to get into real estate rather than the commission. It's just so silly, but it is what it is. And we'll see if the NAR settlement gets approved. Let's see, Tammy, everyone's just going to go to the listing agent, no reason to use the buyer's agent. And it's hard all of a sudden to become listing agents. Yeah, well, I'm glad you're here. I have good news for you. I am glad you're here because we're going to be talking about how this shift is truly a gift for you. And while a lot of your peers are scrambling, they're anxious, they're in that fear and uncertainty mode, you can be confident and start taking action towards that direction of becoming that top listing agent so you have the market share. So in the event, as you just mentioned, Tammy, in the event that buyers go directly to the listing agent, it'll be you. So that is my hope and desire for all of us. So this was an article about the commission lawsuit, and this is something that I think really was insightful for Fortune to put out, because a lot of the headlines that we see are talking about how we're going to see prices come down and all of this. And basically, home buyers expecting big savings after realtor settlement, they're likely in for a letdown, right? These savings likely aren't going to be passed on to the buyer. Here was a quote in the article from Steve Murray, the president of Real Trends. He said, "No seller I've encountered will lower the price just because their transaction cost went down. That won't happen." And he's absolutely right. I don't believe it will either. And here was another quote from the article. "I expect commissions to get bid down to 4% to 5% over time with variation by home price and geography. It's a significant change, but will likely be gradual. I expect most of the gain to be captured by the seller, so the impact on home prices will be small." I thought this was a good quote. I tend to agree with this. I do think we're going to see some pressure on commissions, especially that buy side. On the flip side of things, though, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this in a moment, but I do believe that if you're a listing agent, you could potentially be making more. So definitely something to keep in mind. And it's not going to happen overnight. These things will take time. I do believe it will be gradual. More buyers are likely to go directly to listing agents to avoid having to shell out for commission costs. So Tammy mentioned this, we just know that it is likely going to be a byproduct of this settlement. And we're likely going to see more buyers going directly to the listing agent. How many buyers are going to overpay because they're trying to save on commissions? Probably quite a few, right? And so we know that it's not going to be in their best interest. And my heart definitely is for that first time buyer. It was a long time ago, but a few decades ago, I bought my first home, and I can't imagine having to do that alone without representation, without guidance. And so I was so grateful to have an agent guide me through that process. It's really sad how it's going to unfairly hurt buyers, especially first time buyers, especially VA, FHA, marginalized. So that's where we get to be advocates for home buyers and, really help them through that process. Here was another one. Right now, everyone is turning this ruling into what they want it to be. Some people are saying not much is going to change. Others want the story to be that it's a seismic shift for the industry. The whole thing is being driven by fear and uncertainty. And I thought this was a great sum up to the article because it is true. Like, nobody really knows what's going to happen. And I think that depending on who you are, you can take this ruling and kind of, mold it to the narrative that you want it to be. What I can say here, and here's what I know, is that your peers are now reaching out to Zoodealio in droves. We have seen our demos and our new account signups quadruple over the past 2 weeks. We are seeing more realtors come to us looking for a solution to be a listing agent to generate for sellers. And so I hope that you've already solidified these offerings in your marketplace because you're about to see many more agents utilizing optionality to attract sellers into their fold. And what we're seeing here is an exceptional growth in this. Not only do we see the brokers, the teams, and the agents reaching out to us, but we've also seen an influx of other real estate technology companies reaching out to us, looking for a way to bring a solution to the agents that are currently in their platforms. And so a lot's going on. Who knows what's ultimately going to happen? Who knows if the settlement is actually going to get approved? But I think that there are some things that we can be aware of and just start doing now that will take our business in the right direction no matter what. And that's what I love about this. So I wanted to share with you some research from 1000 Watt on buyers and what they think about commissions and what their willingness to pay for a commission is. So there's all this talk about how buyers are going to go directly to the listing agent, which they may, but 1000 Watt did do a polling of buyers and they asked them, here was the question: if you were buying a home today and your budget was $500,000, how much would you be willing to pay for the services of a real estate agent to guide you through the process? And you can see on the screen here what their answers were. A couple key insights. 1 in 5 of the people surveyed said that they would be willing to pay the equivalent of a 2.5% commission. So that's pretty good. 20% are willing to pay 2.5%. So that's good. 37% would be willing to pay the equivalent of a 2% commission. And so what we know is that they're still valuing our services. You can see here by the answers that they still are valuing, the services of a realtor. I can tell you that our technical founder, when he found out about this, reached out and was like, this is crazy. He's like, when I bought my house, I absolutely needed the agent. It was just like a no-brainer to have the agent guide me through. They do find us valuable as buyer agents, buyers do. And so we just have to get creative and innovate on how we've always done things, which I believe is very exciting. Here's something else I wanted to point out, because in kind of the whole hullabaloo when all of this kind of took off, the CEO of Open Door issued a LinkedIn statement about the settlement. And what I really want to highlight is that details are emerging from today's news on the NAR settlement. But we've maintained that these industry suits would have a neutral to positive impact for consumers and for Open Door. Our business model doesn't rely on earning revenue from commissions paid to buyer's agents. Rather, those commissions are a cost to us that we pay when we resell our homes. So I thought this was kind of interesting, very interesting, because this kind of gives some insight on what will likely happen at Open Door. If the settlement gets approved, we may see Open Door pull back buyer agent commissions, right? Because they're highlighting here that they're a cost to us. They're probably wanting their investors to know that this doesn't negatively impact them. Maybe they're wanting to highlight that this positively impacts them, and this is their way of saying it. Everyone always wants to know how Open Door's fees stack up, and so I have a little bit of data here for us. This is from datadoor.io, and what Datadoor embeddeddoor.io does is they track all of the open door listings and sales in all of the markets that they're in. And what they have revealed is that their embedded margin, and so basically the embedded margin means basically what they bought the home for, what they sold the home for, and what that margin was 16.2% for the homes purchased in February. You can see that it does change. They track it based on the month purchased. So you have some months like September where the embedded margin was 17%. You have some months, last July, it was almost 18%. Why is this important? Well, we also know that Open Door charges a service fee. We also know that Open Door takes generally some sort of credit in lieu of repairs during the inspection period. And so what we know is the cost to sell a home with Open Door, if you added on that 5% service fee, if you added on 1% or so for that repair credit that the seller is likely going to give Open Door, you can see here how the cost to sell with Open Door on average is quite high. There are some where they lose, and there are some where they extra crush it. You know, this all evens out. And so this is evened out. But I do think that this is important for us to keep an eye on. And I will keep tracking this and keep showing you so you have that kind of indication of how iBuyers are doing. Thought it was just kind of a good idea to throw that up and share that with you now. But ultimately, I found this on Reddit and I loved it. My realtor heart was so happy when I read this. Is it just me, or is becoming a realtor the best thing that has ever happened to you? And I really want to ask you this question because it is for me. I can look at my life and my journey and what I've been able to accomplish by being a realtor, and I am so grateful that this is the path that I took. And see, here's what I believe. I believe that the market we're headed into is going to require us to have this mindset of gratefulness for what we get to do and who we get to serve. And oh my goodness, we get to really help people with the largest financial decisions of their lives. It's an honor, and truly for me and for this Redditor, it has changed the trajectory of my life. And I am so grateful for it. And yes, is this a wrench in the plans? Is it going to make it a little bit difficult? Are we headed for some change? Absolutely. The only person that likes change is a wet baby. I get it. I don't either. But what I know is that for those of us that are willing to adapt, we will thrive. And we have to keep this mindset of being a realtor is the best thing that's ever happened to us. What we get to do is a privilege, and it's such an honor. So I want to kind of share the 6 most stressful aspects of the home selling process. This is some research that was done by 1000 Watt. And the reason I'm sharing this is because we're getting to this time and space where I believe the consumer experience will become so important, not just for buying, but also for selling. So I want to recap the things that really stress sellers out and how we can really tap into sharing with them ways that we can make the transaction more seamless, less friction, and easier. So open houses were the 6th most stressful thing for sellers. They dreaded them. 7% said that they didn't like them. It was the most stressful part of the entire process. Pretty surprising, right? 5 was paperwork. 9% of the sellers surveyed said the paperwork was the most challenging aspect of the home selling process. Number 4, sorry, this is me too, but 1 in 10 sellers said dealing with the real estate agent was the most stressful aspect of the home sale. I'm guessing that this wasn't necessarily their agent, but maybe the agent's on the other side of the transaction. Sometimes there can be some just, unprofessionalism, and they cited that as one of the top stressors. Number 3 was preparing my home for sale. So we know that sellers don't like getting their house ready to sell, especially if their agent comes through and is really honest with them and gives them a good assessment of what needs to happen. We know that oftentimes it can take a lot of work to get that home ready to sell. And 12% of sellers thought it was the most stressful aspect of selling their home. Number 2 was the uncertainty about the outcome. Nobody likes uncertainty. And sellers, just like us realtors in the midst of all of this potential change, are feeling uncertain. Sellers feel uncertain when they list their home for sale. As you can imagine, they're sitting there going like, am I going to get showings? Am I going to get showings this weekend? Am I going to get an offer? And when they do get the offer, 15% of offers fall out. Is the offer going to fall out? Is it going to actually close? So there's a lot of uncertainty about selling your home. And 1 in 5 sellers thought it was the most stressful aspect of selling their home. And the number one stressor when it came to selling your home were the negotiations. So the backs and the forths with the buyers, it was the most stressful part of the process for 41% of home sellers. Why am I sharing this with you today? Well, because I believe that those of us that really are able to shift and really are able to pivot and adapt and thrive now and in the future are the ones of us that can really tap into improving the consumer experience. Because see, people are willing to pay for a good experience. They're not going to be willing to pay for that same old, crappy experience. They want better. Here was a quote that I had found. It was from the Walmart CEO. He said, "The companies that will win are those that will continue innovating to serve people in a way that saves them time, takes friction out of their lives, and lowers some of the decision making they have to go through." So this quote really just stuck out at me. And it wasn't in relation to real estate. The context of this was the Walmart CEO during their shareholder reporting was saying how, consumers are very budget conscientious right now and they're really tightening their belt in a lot of areas. But the one area that they're not tightening their belt around is for products and things that are convenient. So convenient in terms of packaging, in terms of all sorts of things. And so I thought this was really interesting. It shows that consumer sentiment is shifting towards convenience. This article as well highlights just how consumers are not only favoring convenience, but they're almost getting addicted to convenience. And my producer and videographer here, he watches a YouTube channel, and he's going to be so mad at me that I can't remember the name of the guy. But the YouTuber, basically, it's a financial show, and the YouTuber brings on guests, and he kind of does a digest of their budget. And he's constantly blowing people up for how much money they're spending on convenient things like, Uber Eats or Door Dashing and that sort of thing. And so it's really, kind of telling of the times that we're in. But the takeaway is that people do want convenient, and they want experiences that they can click a button and have that experience. So there's some research out from CMS Wire on convenience and consumer behavior. And here are a few things that they uncovered. 70% of customers would pay more if they knew the experience would be convenient. So they want easy. They're looking for easy, and they're willing to pay more for easy. 75% would switch companies if they found a competitor was more convenient to do business with. Again, they're looking for easy. They're willing to switch. 3 out of 4 people would switch service providers to somebody that was more convenient. Here's a question for you. Do you have an easy, convenient way for a buyer to tour a home with you? Do you have an easy, convenient way for a seller to book an appointment with you? And these things don't have to be complicated. I'm going to give you a great example. You could use Calendly. You could set up, book a one-house showing, and you can have that on your calendar, and you can put that on all of your links across all your social channels. You can put that on your email signature. So anybody that's researching you or doing business with you, if they click that link, they're going to see the different options. Oh, I can book a showing with her. I can book a consultation for selling my home with her. What are the things that you're doing to make working with you easy? Ask yourself that. How can I improve the experience I'm giving buyers and sellers? I podcasted with a Zoodealio member. Her name is Paige Sharnick. She's out of Long Beach, California. I podcasted with her recently. And in my research for podcasting with her, I went onto her Instagram and I was just checking her out. And I clicked the link in her bio, which had a link to her calendar. And on her link in bio was book a showing with me, book 3 showings. And she had all these different options for buyers to book quick showings with her. Do you offer that sort of convenient experience for your customers? If not, you may want to consider doing that. And if you want a good person to model, go check out Paige Sharnick. Hers was great. It was even on her website. And so even on her website, she had the ability for you to book the appointments right there. You didn't have to call her. You didn't have to text her. You didn't have to reach out. You could just book straight away. And I envision when the rule change comes and we need that buyer broker agreement signed in order to book that showing, my guess is, and the rules aren't out yet, but my guess is you can probably have a one-off, right? Like, hey, if I show you this home, the fee is 2.5%, and you can have them sign something right then and there. And so they're not only booking, but they're signing, and maybe it's only good for one house. Who knows? Maybe this is even a strategy that you could use for open houses, so that if you're holding an open house, maybe before the buyer even comes into the home, you have a QR code, they scan it for a pre-registration prior to viewing the home, and maybe when they scan it, it pops up a questionnaire, and then also pops up the compensation agreement at that time too. So I think that there are a lot of ways that we're going to be able to innovate and not only make the experience more convenient and easier, but also protect ourselves for that new rule change. Okay, so ultimately, the CMS Wire consumer research revealed 3 things when it came to convenience and their principles. And the number one thing is we want to reduce friction. Number 2 is consumers want to use technology. They want to do these things on their time when they want to. And number 3, they want to be able to do these things themselves. And so as you're kind of doing an audit of your business and looking for areas of optimization, I would suggest that you take a picture of this slide and start looking through all of the ways that you do business and how you interact with buyers and sellers, and look at it through this lens and just really be honest with yourself and answer the question of, am I delivering a convenient experience? Because we know people are willing to pay more for it. And when it comes to selling their home, we also know that sellers are willing to give up some cheddar for an iBuyer sale. So Clever did a study on the American attitudes of iBuyers. This was back in 2022. And what that revealed was that the average homeowner would be willing to give up $45,000 to sell instantly and choose their close date. And so sellers value, again, they value certainty, they value convenience, and they're willing to pay for it. We also know too that these sellers, when requesting an iBuyer offer, they want you to bring them these offers. So when polled, 72% said that if they were requesting an iBuyer offer, they would like that offer to come from a real estate agent. They want you to help them navigate the sale. They find value in you. And so here's the takeaway. You got to be leading with your cash offers. You've got to be providing those to sellers as an option. It's just optionality. What we know is most sellers go on to list their home on the open market. Most sellers don't take an iBuyer offer. Most of them do list with a realtor, put their home on the MLS, and go the traditional route. But the beauty is by giving cash offers and meeting the consumer where they're at and satisfying that curiosity, delivering them to them in a quick and easy manner, you position yourself as the leader in the marketplace, and they're more likely to do business with you. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about what I call the easiest way to move. I want to talk through the different cash offers and options that are returned to you in your dashboard. You have your all cash offer, your cash plus offer, your sell now, move later offer, and your fix it and list it offer. And what's really cool is we're building our buyer network. Even still, we're adding new buyers into the platform, talking with another new buyer that's really cool, got another creative, neat offering, trying to figure out how we can implement and work with them. We want to deliver for you truly all of the different ways that a seller can sell and a buyer can buy other than the traditional aspect. That way you're positioned as the leader. Let's talk through kind of pros and cons of the offers that are returned. So as I mentioned, we return these 4 offers. You may also get returned the cash buyer program, and that is such a cool program. It's not available in all markets, so if it's in your market, it's really cool. It's for buyers that are looking to buy. For today's call, I am going to focus though on the cash offers geared towards sellers. So we first have the cash offer, and the biggest benefits of this are, seller gets to pick their closing date, they get to skip showing, skip stress, they don't have to make any repairs or any updates. It's a really cool offer. The cons of this offer is we are seeing them pretty low. As I just showed earlier, the open door embedded margin, you can kind of see just from that these cash buyers are looking to get a pretty steep discount. Another con to the seller is they don't get to play the open market. And so potentially if that listing were on the open market, it would sell on the open market. And finally, they're likely leaving a lot of money on the table. So there are definitely buyers that it works for, but we are seeing the acceptance rate on straight cash offers to be very, very low. Keep that in mind. Now, when you're in the platform, here is the cash offer tile. If you click view offer details, it's going to give you a little bit of an overview. It's going to show you what the fees are for the offer, etc. So keep this in mind. Doesn't work for everyone. It is coming in a little low. And what we are seeing is that the cash plus offer and the sell now move later offer are trumping the cash offers because pros, the cash plus offer is a full market value cash offer. It really is designed to be full market. So if it's returned automatically, then please let us know. It's low. And, if you have that extenuating circumstance to share with our team, that always is helpful. They will push back on the buyer and get that underwritten. Also, with the Cash Plus, allows the seller to skip showing, skip stress. They get to sell on their own timetable so they can pick their own close date. With the Cash Plus offer, there is a little bit of a late checkout available. They can also utilize the flip your own home strategy. Great strategy for really maximizing the resale value of the home. And I'll share with you why that's important in just a moment. So the seller gets to receive that first payout and move out before those repairs are made. And another benefit of the Cash Plus offer is if the home sells for more on the open market, then all of that additional upside is returned to them. So really neat offer. Now the cons to this offer is it is a structured sale. And so there are two payouts to the homeowner. There's a program fee, which can be a con. Another con is that first payout may not be enough. So keep that in mind. If you have a seller that's interested in the Cash Plus offer, that first payout may not be enough. And then another con is the home may sell for less on the open market. And because of the way that the sale is structured, if it sells for less on the open market, then that difference is deducted from the reserve and the remaining portion is returned. And so the flip your own home strategy can be really exciting, and it can be a way for that seller to make more money. Here's how. And here's why the seller would even care. So many times in the Cash Plus offer, the buyer is going to take a reserve of anywhere from 15, as high as even 20%, 25% maybe for really expensive homes, or for homes where maybe there's not as many comps, or maybe it's a low density area. So keep that in mind. There are reasons for that reserve to be increased, and the buyer will communicate those reasons when they're delivering that updated offer to you. But the flip your home strategy is really neat because what we can do is the buyer will go in after the seller moves out and make repairs to renovate that property and enhance that resale value of the property. Now, keep in mind that the seller is paying for these repairs, so the cost of them comes out of their equity. But the benefit to them is if their home just needed a little bit of work, if it just needed, maybe some carpets and paint, or maybe it's completely outdated in an area where home prices have really accelerated and many of the comparables are renovated. Even in that scenario, this strategy can work so well because we can update that comp to market conditions so that when it sells on the open market, it sells for way more than what the seller would have sold it for had they just brought it to market in its current condition. And when that happens, utilizing this strategy, any of that upside is returned to the seller. And so I want to show you in the dashboard the Cash Plus offer. So if you click the View Offer Details button on the Cash Plus offer, it gives an overview of the timeline and what to expect. And then there are also some examples right within the Cash Plus offer of the Flip Your Own Home strategy. And so you can get an idea of how the buyer went in and made certain repairs. So in this case, you can see here that they did a whole new kitchen, kitchen. They did all new flooring, all new interior paint, that sort of thing. If you click the little icons at the bottom, it will show you different rooms in the house. So it looks like they remodeled the bathroom, the shower, and just night and day difference, as you can see here. But the reason why this strategy can be so cool for sellers is if you look at the numbers here, the as-is value of this home was $330,000. The repair costs were $78,000, but it ended up selling for $555,000. And so that seller had an increase of $147,000. So even after they paid a program fee to their agent, or to the buyer, and even after they paid the commissions to their agent, they still made so much more money than had they just brought this home to market in the original state. And so also, if you click see breakdown, it's going to give you the numbers to this. So this offer, the program fee is 6%. The agent commissions and resale closing costs are 7.5%. And there's a calculator here, so you can, calculate what that second payout is going to be based on where the home sells. A couple things I want to highlight here is the buyer will use you to list the home as well. So when you see that agent commissions and resale closing costs at 7.5%, here's how that skins down. When the buyer purchases the home from your seller, you're going to get paid a 2% commission. And then they're going to list that home with you. And on that listing agreement, they're going to contract with you for 4.5%. And they're going to request that 2.5% be set aside for the buyer broker. That additional percent the buyer uses for the closing costs on the resale. So just wanted to kind of highlight that and show you how that works. Okay, and then the sell now, move later. I want you to think of this offer just like the Cash Plus. It really is the same offer. So pretty much everything that I just described for the Cash Plus can work with the sell now, move later. The only difference between the Cash Plus and the sell now, move later is the flexible lease back. And so for instance, if you have a seller and they're wanting to cash out now, but they're not ready to move out for 6 months, this could be a perfect offer for them, because along with the offer, you're going to get returned a monthly lease amount. And so the seller can stay in the home and lease it back on a flexible basis for that monthly lease amount. They can lease back for up to 12 months, and in certain circumstances, potentially they can go longer than 12 months. If you have a seller that needs, say, 18 months, communicate that with the offers team, because they are different buyers that run each program. And so then the offers team will make sure to get it to the appropriate buyer. But there are some cons to the Cash Plus. So same with to the sell now, move later. Same with the Cash Plus. It's a structured sale, so there are 2 payouts. So there is a program fee. So the first payout may not be enough. Here's another con. That monthly lease amount is at a premium. Okay, so what you're going to find is that if market value rent for that house is, say, $2,000, you may see the rent returned at $2,300. There is a premium, okay? So we don't try and hide that. We're really upfront about it. You will see a premium on that rent. It may or may not work for everybody. We just like to share with you that so you're aware. And then, of course, another con is that home may sell for less. And as the payouts are structured, as you can see, if it sells for less, that difference between the offer amount and then the amount it sells for on the open market would be deducted from the reserve, and the remaining portion would be returned. So if we go longer, who knows what the market can do, but sellers should be aware that markets are cyclical and changing. And so no one can predict the future. And if prices will go up or down or stay the same, we really don't know. But definitely something to keep in mind. However, this can be a great option for people. We have seen this come in clutch when a seller, for instance, really needs to tap into their equity. They're planning on moving over the next, year, and maybe they don't qualify to do a refi cash out or get a HELOC, or that sort of thing. And so they're not in a position to qualify for that, but they need to access their funds in their home. So definitely some neat use cases for the sell now, move later. Now, this is a neat strategy. Basically, seller gets their house renovated and then it's brought to market. They can flip their own home, which great strategy. They don't have to pay anything out of pocket for the repairs. So the contracting company will get paid at closing. Absolutely can enhance the resale value of the home and help them sell for top dollar. The cons to this one is they're likely going to have to find temporary housing while that home is being renovated or repaired, or in the alternative, they're going to have to live in that home while it's being repaired. So we can see this being kind of difficult for many sellers. If you've ever lived in a home while it's being remodeled, you know how difficult that is. It's not fun. A great strategy. And also, if you have a home that needs some work before it comes to market, you definitely should be exploring this, and you should definitely be exploring the Cash Plus. Here's what I want to leave us with today. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear out in the marketplace. We can't control the market, but we can control our market share. I'm a firm believer in this. Get out there today, take action. You have tools and resources at your disposal that other agents don't even know about. You have an unfair competitive advantage, and I really believe that this shift we're in is a gift for you if you choose to take action and execute around these things that you already know. We appreciate you guys. We're thankful for you. Have a great week, and I'll see you back in a couple weeks.